Yeah, welcome everyone. I think we'll get started. First of all, I'd like to welcome, thank you for registering and taking part in this free seminar. Today we're going to talk about SACE and IB subject selection. So, bit of an agenda. What are we going to talk today? First, give a brief introduction about us, so that you get the confidence that you are getting the valid information. Tutors SA, one of the leading private tuition institutes in Adelaide. We provide private tuition groups, predominantly small group tuition from reception to year 12. Group classes for year 11s and 12s point of view, we do provide group tuition for SACE subjects. But when it comes to IB, predominantly it's individual tuition. At the moment, we have about 750 plus students. And then 50 plus experienced tutors to support our course. MedPrep, we are specialized in, of course, providing the UCAT preparation for students who are aspiring to be medical doctors in future. We do have two different versions, in that the UCAT course for the exam preparation, and then also the interview preparation for those students who get selected to the next phase. And if you get into the core topic that we all are here for, the importance of subject selection. Based on the ongoing parent meetings that I have, especially with the students who are in high school level, it is a common topic that come across again and again about subject selection and having that right awareness. It's quite important to get that subject choices that impact the future academic and the career paths, depending on the students' kind of expectations and the interests. Changing subjects on the way, as after you select, that can impact the progress. So it's important to have that thorough thinking upfront, solidify the selection so that progress can be relatively smoother. Third point we have captured is the importance of aligning subjects with interest and career goals. Generally, what we advise is that if you can get the students to think about, visualize, okay, who they want to be in future, like what their career path in 10 years, 15 years time, and then work backward from idea to get an idea, okay, what university degree they need to do, and accordingly, what are the suitable subjects they should select, whether it's SACE or IB, and accordingly, what they should pick for year 11 or SACE stage 1 or IB for that matter. We'll go through a bit more details about that. And yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit more about SACE and then the IB aspects, and I'm going to pass it on to Estrem.
Alrighty, so IB, SACE is offered at all schools that offer year 11 and 12 in South Australia. Not all schools offer IB, that's the first thing. So if you're at a school that doesn't offer IB, skip zone out for this part of the presentation, it won't be long. But if you're at one that offers both, like I was, I found it a very difficult decision to make when I was in year 10. I had a lot of friends who were going to do IB, a lot of friends who were going to do SACE, and I really struggled with making the decision of which one would suit my learning goals the most. SACE is designed for year 11 and 12 students in South Australia and the Northern Territory. It's separated into a stage 1 program, that's typically subjects that you would take in year 11, and a stage 2 program, which are typically subjects that you would take in year 12. It's a flexible option. It allows a few deviations from the traditional program that you might normally take, things like vet courses or university subjects in year 12. Are possible with SACE and then not with IB. And we'll touch on a couple of those options a bit later in the presentation. IB is a different program, the International Baccalaureate. It's offered in over 160 countries. It's an internationally recognised program. They claim that it builds a more rounded individual, emphasising critical thinking, research and intercultural understanding. It's a 2-year continuous study program. So as opposed to SACE, where the subjects are either 6 months long for stage 1 or a year long for stage 2. The IB is a 2-year long subject with a big exam at the end of it, or 3. And most of your mark comes from those exams. SACE, on the other hand, is more continuous assessment from assignments and the like, and only some subjects have an exam at the end of the SACE course. The extra subject in SACE is your research project. So that's a topic of your choice that you complete for half a year, either in year 11 or year 12, depending on your school. IB's equivalent is an extended essay that you complete throughout the IB. Some common perceptions about SACE versus IB. A lot of people think that IB is harder. It's certainly true that the 2-year long curriculum can be challenging, and also the concepts covered, for example, in chemistry IB as opposed to chemistry SACE, IB will get slightly more into the more complex topics. And that's just as a result of being in the same class for 2 years with the same teacher. You can just progress faster. However, there are more subjects offered in SACE, and sometimes you can get more specific with some of the SACE subjects than you can in some of the IB ones as well. Student preferences. SACE is quite structured. You have your specific subjects and there's not much crossover between them, as opposed to IB where there's a lot of crossover between the classes, and you'll often have one group that you progress through the whole IB with. In SACE, as I touched on before, there are subject acceleration opportunities which are not available in the IB program. Conversion rates used to be a common reason back when I was doing, so I was in year 10 in 2013, so a lot of people chose IB in 2014 because they believed that it was going to scale better when it came to coming up with an ATAR result. You know, a bunch of A's in IB would convert to a 99.95 ATAR, whereas SACE it was really difficult to get a high ATAR. However, recently, to get a really high ATAR in IB, you have to get essentially almost full marks in all of your subjects, whereas SACE is a bit more flexible. So I would say that that benefit of IB has definitely decreased in the last few years. Lastly, and perhaps most obviously, the International Baccalaureate is of course recognised internationally. However, SACE is also recognised throughout the world, and it's worth, if you're thinking about studying overseas at specific universities, it would definitely be worth checking with them, do you recognise SACE as a prerequisite? Don't let the fact that IB is international be the thing that persuades you for that, would be my recommendation. Prerequisites. I guess there's two stages of prerequisites. So to get into, say, stage one subjects generally don't have any prerequisites, or you would be doing them in year 10 now. But to progress from stage 1 to stage 2, often the stage 2 subjects have prerequisite subjects. For example, to do, say, stage 2 chemistry in year 12, you have to have done, say, stage 1 chemistry in year 11. So that's the school level prerequisites. And your school will usually produce a handbook that outlines what the specific requirements are for each subject that you might be considering. There's also prerequisites at universities. So different university courses have different prerequisite subjects. And it's really important that you think broadly about, you know, you're at least 2 years away from going to university. What are all the possible subjects that you might be interested in studying? And make sure that you don't close off any avenues prematurely by not doing those subjects in year 11 and 12. A couple of examples. Medicine at the University of Adelaide requires biology or chemistry or mathematical methods in year 12, a stage 2 subject for one of those three minimum. Engineering, for example, the specific engineering degrees vary with what their prerequisites are, but this is for chemical engineering. It requires mathematical methods and specialist mathematics and physics, although there are bridging courses available for certain programs at universities as well. So it's important that you check on that. And there are IB equivalents for all of those as well. Some courses also have other entry requirements, the most common one being medicine and dentistry as well. If you're interested in medicine, you may already be aware that only 40% of your medical entry mark comes from your ATAR, so that's from year 11 and 12. 40% is based on your interview, which is a single 30-minute assessment of your ability that you complete in November of your year 12 year. And 20% comes from the UCAT, the University Clinical Aptitude Test, that you sit in the year that you're applying for medicine as well. The ATAR is a really complicated topic to understand, and it took me a long time to get my head around how exactly the ATAR is calculated. Essentially, your ATAR is a rank. It's a percentile, and it's what percentage of students in the country did you score higher than in your final year 12 marks, is the easiest way to understand it. So an ATAR of 50 means you're right in the middle, you're better than 50% of students, and worse than the other 50% of students. In SACE, you obtain an aggregate score out of 90 points. And those 90 points come from your best 4.5 subjects that you complete. A half subject is an odd concept, but research project, which I mentioned before, is a half subject because it's a 6-month-long subject. Religion in stage 2 is a half subject, it's a 6-month subject. Some of the musical programs are half subjects. And if you don't have any half subjects, they just take the half of one of your full subjects. They literally divide the mark by 2. They add up your best 4.5 subjects, and that gives you a score out of 90, and then that's converted to your ATAR. And this is how they convert it. So each year there's a conversion table that's produced. The left-hand columns are your aggregate score. So for example, if this student scored 85.4 out of 90, last year they would have received an ATAR of 98.10. So subject selection strategies. Identify your strengths, interests and career goals. And obviously the prerequisite subjects I would say is the most important thing. And speak to your teachers, speak to your careers counsellors. Ask them not only what subjects do they recommend, but what subjects are you good at. Everyone worries about scaling, and we could have an entire 1 hour seminar just about what scaling is and how that will affect you. But just know that if you pick subjects that you're strong at and you receive a good mark for them, they're always scaled less than if you receive the middle of the range of a difficult subject, if that makes sense. So you're better off picking subjects that you're stronger at. Would be my recommendation. VET courses are one of the flexible options that you can do in the SACE program. So the benefits, it provides practical skills and qualifications, and you can combine that with your SACE studies, and you can often complete them during periods of school holidays. So you can get an entire subject done during the middle of the year break often. Gives you a hands-on learning experience, and if you're not interested in university study, it can often be a pathway to employment or further education, for example at TAFE or completing an apprenticeship. The most common VET courses that we see with our students are the Certificate 3 in Business and the Certificate 3 in Information Technology, but there's an entire list that are available. One unique part of the South Australian Certificate of Education is that English is not a required subject at Year 12 level. It is in Year 11, but not at Year 12, as opposed to most other states in Australia where English is mandatory in Year 12. And what that means is that interstate universities, for a lot of their subjects or degrees, have English as a prerequisite. And sometimes students who study in South Australia, thinking English is not one of my strong subjects, I'm not going to do it in Year 12, find that they're limited in their options. They may have received an offer for medicine in Melbourne, but they weren't able to complete it because they hadn't done English at the Year 12 level in South Australia. So if you have any thoughts about heading interstate for university, my recommendation would be to do English, even if it's not one of your strongest subjects. And again, you can look up on the particular university's websites about whether or not English is a prerequisite for that subject. There's two English courses available at Stage 2 level for SACE. There's English Literary Studies, which is traditionally the harder English subject. It has an exam at the end of it. And then there's a subject that's just called English. Also check certain humanities degrees may have the English Literary Studies as a prerequisite as opposed to just English.
Thank you, Estrom. Yeah, so next I'm going to go through about subject acceleration with SACE. So as Estrom said, there's no acceleration opportunity under IB. It's a 2-year program, whereas with SACE, the opportunity is there for the students who've done well. Yeah, so in that, I think I'm going to discuss 2 aspects. The acceleration options point of view, the core year 11 and 12 subjects point of view. So the completing stage 2 or year 12 generally, subjects in stage 1. Again, it depends on the school. Generally, maths, chemistry, and some schools, biology. Actually, biology is a bit different situation because you're not required to do stage 1 biology. You can directly do stage 2 biology. So, but especially for most of the math subjects and physics and chemistry, that option is there. What does that mean is that then if there's a stage 1 prerequisite that needs to be done in year 10. So some of you, maybe the students may be already doing some of the stage 1 subjects currently, if they're in the accelerated pathway. Then the high performing students have the option to select, get into the Adelaide University Head Start program. So it's a situation where students can, after they have done a corresponding stage 2 subject, they can select certain first year uni subjects while they're in year 12. So there are a couple of benefits, a few benefits in that one. First one is, of course, if that's a pathway that student is going to select at uni, so they're already gaining some credits for that university degree. Secondly, for those students who are aiming to get a top in ATAR, the common feedback is that it is easier to get 20 credits through or by getting a high distinction for a first year uni subject, opposed to trying to aim to get a 19.6 or 8 from a stage 2 core subject. Then here we're trying to highlight not necessarily examples, but 3 different scenarios where how students can think about the subject selection. The normal load or the standard situation, we call it 4.5 subjects. I think Estrom was mentioning about this. So doing 4 stage 2 core subjects from SACE point of view, and then the 0.5, that's the research project, for example, and then in line with that aggregate score, so 90 points or the credits will come from those 4.5 subjects and then aligned, convert into the corresponding ATAR. And then the second scenario is 3.5 subjects or 3 core subjects and 10 credit subject, and also doing a wet course. So when Esther was explaining the wet courses, I think the original expectation in introducing wet courses in the SACE curriculum is that provide an opportunity for those students who may not necessarily go to university by choice, but they might decide to go into other tertiary pathways like TAFE or qualification. However, I think there's an opportunity for students to get a better ATAR by doing a wet course as well. How that works, by doing a wet course, they consider 20 credits towards ATAR or towards the aggregate score by averaging the credits they got for the other 3 core subjects. So if you've done really well in 3 subjects, so wet course is a pass or a fail, and then but that allows you to get a better average through the other 3 subjects. I think it's fair to say it has become kind of a trend as well for students to do a wet course to get a better ATAR. Third scenario is accelerated stage 2 in year 11 and head start in year 12. So that's the second category I referred to earlier. So that say for example you're doing maths or chemistry acceleration in year 11, stage 2 subjects done in year 11, and then in year 12 doing corresponding first year uni subjects, and with the aim of getting a high distinction. When I looked at the website, at the university website, the conversion wise, even if a student get a distinction, but there's a better conversion for the corresponding credits, for the SACE credits point of view. And then we thought to discuss about how to succeed in SACE or IB for that matter. I think this is relevant for any student, whether we are in year 10, 11, 12, or in year 5. But if you try to keep the focus with the senior students, so the time management is key, coming up with a plan, a schedule, and stick with the schedule. In that, take into account your other activities like extracurricular activities, and also balance it out, because I think with the Australian education system there is that opportunity to balance and still excel, whereas in some other, based on our experiences, perhaps some other backgrounds, it's really have to study to get that top end result. But I think it's different, and we have seen a lot of students who've done that balance work but get really good results as well. And study tips point of view, I think Esther will add to this as well. Every student, the way they absorb information and learn is different. So you need to, I think about what works best for you. But some common aspects point of view, think about some active learning techniques, summarizing or teaching others so that you can understand where you need to improve. Even things like initially put your best effort to understand the concepts foundation, and then through practice try to excel. I think that way you can cover your gaps early if you try to get the concepts understood early. Utilizing available resources, your school teachers, resources at school, or support from tutors, or other online materials. So with the change in the technology of the last 4 years at least, I think there's a lot of information available online so that students can benefit from those complementary resources. Exam preparation. So I know the main exam comes in stage 2. And then from stage 1 point of view, for example, for each subject, topic-based exams. I think normally when I advise students or parents, I mention that consider year 10, 11, 12 as a whole. Don't wait till year 12 to start performing, because with the change in the curriculum in the last 7 years or so, things have changed a little bit. It's I think important to get that mindset. Okay, I'm working towards stage 2 from now, opposed to maybe this time next year. Preparation point of view, whether it's a class exam, topic-based exam, or summative, I think practice is a key. Also from the final exam point of view, look at practicing some past exams under exam conditions, so that the actual final exam is another practice exam. From the mindset point of view, you're handling your time management, the pressure management, and familiarity with the type of the questions. It's going to be quite important in that one. Yeah, so how we could help from Tutors SA point of view, as mentioned initially as well, so we provide small group tuition for SACE, and then the individual tuition for IB, known for our explicit teaching method. So we teach concepts, and now we have content developed from reception to your table in-house. So the original course content for the year 11 and 12 work point of view, our resources are aligned with the SACE curriculum, of course, and original questions. We're trying to map it to a level so that students benefit for their summatives or the formatives, and also the final exam preparation. And in the last couple of years, we have invested a lot on the hybrid tuition model. So as you can see, that our aim in that is to maintain the continuity. Whether a student is not able to come to a class, or they're sick, or they're overseas, as long as they have an internet connection, they can learn maintain the learning. So here's an extra, this is one of our classrooms. So we have touchscreen monitors, projectors, and then the conference cameras where students can join online if they can't come to the lesson, so that way, and access resources online. Yeah, and also for the SACE in particular, we have revision happening every September, relevant year 12 year level, and then also mock exams. So that's something we started last year, the mock exams, and was very successful. Again, providing that, I know in schools they have mock exams, which is great, but also we are providing that opportunity, another opportunity for them to perform that in October before their SACE exams.
MedPrep is really focused on helping students who are interested in getting into medicine or dentistry or the Bachelor of Oral Health to achieve those goals. So we provide all the things that one would need for the 60% of your entry mark that comes from the UCAT combined with the medical interview. We run year-long UCAT courses, again, classroom-based, in this centre and also at our other centre at Mitcham. And in those courses, we cover the entire content of the UCAT exam. We do multiple practice exams, sort of 5 practice exams throughout the year. And those courses you can join from as early as year 10. Unfortunately, every year it's getting harder and harder to achieve a high enough mark in the UCAT. I know if I sat the UCAT today, the mark that the number of questions that I got right would not have been the same score that I received for my exam. And that's unfortunately just the way it is. So we help students to achieve that. And we offer the medical interview training. Often overlooked in people's preparation, in my view, but it's worth double the amount that your UCAT is. So it's definitely worth investing your time into preparing for your interview. And we help with those services by small group interview workshops, as well as offering mock interviews for our students.
So I would like to really thank you for coming. I hope it was useful, and yeah, and feel free to contact us if you got any further questions, right? Thank you.
Here are some selected questions from our question and answer session. Question 1. What are some more specific considerations for SACE subject selection?
A point I would like to add to that, we are not promoting medicine, but I know most parents are interested in that one, right? So subject selection point of view, okay, common questions point of view, okay, my child want to do medicine, what subjects I should select? So one thing I would like to add generally is that, okay, think about the strengths of the student as well, but the other aspect is, okay, how we can get the best ATAR, right? So that's a balancing we have to do. I think that's where I think even a vet course, maybe even accounting, for example, there's no real relation to medicine, but students do accounting. I'm not doing a recommendation, I'm sharing the thoughts, right? Or nutrition, for example, so those kind of subjects where they can boost the ATAR. But at the same time, my suggestion is that think about the backup option. For some students, okay, I really want to be a doctor, or let's say I want to really do medicine. So if you don't get through the first time around, they would do a gap year or repeat and try to get there again. But for some other students, all right, it didn't work out, that's fine, I'm going to do sciences, some other health science degree. In that case, okay, what are the relevant subjects? Or, oh no, medicine didn't work for me, so I'm going to do engineering. So then the requirements will be different. So take that into account as well, especially for math subjects and the physics and the likes. But as Estram said, there are bridging courses in most of the universities. But I think it's good to think, because what I've seen in the past, like some students, if you're really locked in, if you're really decided upfront, okay, these are the subjects I'm going to do, I think it makes things a bit easier. Whereas even for students who are performing really well in year 12, okay, I'm going to change my subject, and that can impact on their final performance. So I think that solidity, decision making is going to be quite important. Again, nothing against SACE versus IB, but the SACE, the benefits of SACE, especially like if you're in a school where the subject acceleration is allowed, I would highly suggest, like, if you're in that level, reach out to the subject coordinators and see whether there's an opportunity to go through that. Because, I mean, there can be the extreme case where you do a stage 2 subject in stage 1 and then the university head start. Even otherwise, there's an opportunity for you to repeat the same subject. You might get a B+ or in the first round, but you've done that whole subject. So the second time around, there's a higher chance for you to get a good result. I have students who have done that. So the workload is less, because for these good students, they know, okay, where they have gone wrong, so they can work on those mistakes quite easily than doing a full credit subject, totally different subject. So there are a few benefits in that aspect as well. But again, it comes down to what your end goal as a parent as well as a student, where they want to end up in from a degree or the final career point of view. Yes.
Question 2. What are the differences between specialist maths and mathematical methods in SACE?
Yeah, you can add as well.
Personally, I found specialist maths easier than maths methods.
I was going to say the same. As in, when I say students at above a certain level, they actually perform better in specialist maths compared to methods, because you know, the application is a bit different in methods compared to specialist maths. But normally, what I recommend is if at least in stage 1, try to do specialist maths. So as Tom said before, you can always, you have SACE point of view, you always have the option to drop spec if you really don't enjoy, or if you're not getting, if you find it too challenging for stage 2 point of view. So, but I think that foundation and the thinking skills you get through spec is going to be quite important for some other subjects as well. Yeah, especially if students doing physics, for example. Yeah.
It's just a different type of maths.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a lot more abstract.
That's right. So if you're in that zone, basically you get it much faster compared to methods or I mean, general maths is relatively easy here. So methods is the most common stage 1 and stage 2 math subject. In that, so students learn about, continuing from year 10, the quadratics or trigonometry and statistics, and then they start learning, this is from the SACE curriculum point of view, differential calculus towards the end of the year. And then a level up is of course the specialist maths, and stage 1 curriculum point of view, they're going to more complex topics like called vectors, which is relevant for physics, for example, and complex numbers and more advanced trigonometry. So that's why if a student is getting exposure to specialist maths, they tend to do well in method as well, because they have done a bit more challenging questions, so to speak, right?
Question 3. Can you please provide general advice on medical entry requirements?
For Flinders? Yep, so it's so different. Every university, I don't think I've found 2 universities that have the same entry requirements, which is very frustrating when you're trying to advise people on it as a career. So some universities you have to meet a minimum threshold on ATAR, and then we just pick the highest UCAT results, for example. Some have it the other way around. Dentistry tried a couple of years ago at the University of Adelaide. You had to meet a minimum UCAT requirement, you had to meet a minimum ATAR requirement, and then it was based only on your interview, which is a different approach to doing. And then they tried that for 1 year, and then they've scrapped that now. So, but who knows? In 2 years' time, they may go back to something like that. Really good information is always in the university handbooks. I'm not 100%. I believe Flinders has recently changed, so I don't want to tell you the wrong information today. I'm happy to look it up afterwards, and we can have a chat about it. But yeah, the Flinders one is a sort of unique course in that it's direct entry pathway, and then you do have an interview that's sort of halfway through to ensure that you're able to progress onto the Doctor of Medicine program that they have there.
There may be 1 or 2 universities where they don't count.
Exactly. Yeah, Griffith and Bond University are the 2. So Bond's a private university, so you don't pay it doesn't. They don't look at your UCAT at all for Bond University, which is an appealing option for some students. Trade-off being it's 60 to 80,000 a year in non-HEC supported credits. So anyway.
Question 4. Why did you select SACE over IB?
Those are both great questions. Thanks very much. So for me, choosing SACE over IB, so I went into school, I think from year 9 or thereabouts, with the intent to do IB. I'd always thought that IB was for the talented students, the difficult students, and therefore IB was the only, choice that I was ever going to make, of course. And then also my subject, so IB is quite structured in terms of you do 1 subject from the maths, 1 subject or 2 subjects from the sciences, 1 subject from the humanities, 1 subject from the languages. So the subjects that I was keen to do actually fit quite well within the IB framework as well. For some students, it's as easy as I really don't want to study a language, so therefore IB is completely out of the question. But that wasn't the case for me either. I guess I was really interested in maths in year 10 and wanted to do as much as possible. I knew that IB high level maths was going to be a higher level than SACE specialist maths, but my school, Pembroke, had the opportunity to do stage 2 maths in year 11, allowing me to do university level maths in year 12. And if I'd done that, which I did, and I'd gone on to do a maths degree, that would have been 2 subjects that have already been completed. And so I could have potentially finished my degree earlier or gone on to do more subjects from there. I also, the conversion by doing those university Head Start subjects to SACE points out of 20 for each subject are really, really good. So a high distinction, that's above 85% at university, converts to a 20 out of 20. And a distinction, which is above 75%, which would be like a B plus in SACE, gives you a 19.8 out of 20 for SACE as well. So the level that they convert at was a lot more favourable for me. I guess the other factor was I didn't much like the thought of having 70% of my mark for each subject be based on how I perform on the day that the exam was going to be. That scared me a lot. I thought I'd much rather have 30% of my mark based on the exam and the rest based on assignments throughout the year. So those were the factors. I'm not saying these to persuade you off doing IB. I have a number of friends who did IB who all got really, really high marks that they were very, very happy with. You know, I guess they chose it for the reasons that their subjects fit it. They wanted to be a well-rounded education, a more complete program. But I spent months literally thinking about which one I would do, but ultimately decided on SACE.
I would like to add a couple of points to the question. So, SACE versus IB, based on a lot of kind of these questions that parents ask. So, some aspects, my recommendation is go with the student's strength as well. Sometimes, if you're strong in maths, it might be practical, and there's a higher chance to do well in, this is SACE point of view, right? Methods, specialist maths, even chemistry, right, and physics. So I'm not saying to select the harder subjects, but there are students in one category where they select those kind of subjects and they do well because it's kind of all connected. On the other hand, 30% versus 70% or the 80%, right? So there may be some students who are good at performing, learning longer term and they're delivering in a bigger exam, opposed to some other students who prefer ongoing assessments and doing final exam with the 30%. So I think it comes down to the student preference, the performance as well, the way that particular student perform. So those are I think that's another thing I would suggest maybe parents to think about, and how your child normally performs, right? But then there's a risk also, like for some reason on that exam day, if the student is not feeling well, then there's a higher risk compared to the SACE situation. Yeah.
We could have also done a 1-hour seminar on SACE.
That's right, yeah.